It takes a lot of commitment to want to go about your daily duties, even when it's such a lethargic morning. So thank you so much for being part of the webinar. We're trying to see if you can get a quorum of about 15 people, participants, and then we can start the conversation proper. Our speakers are already here, and they're very patiently waiting. So we'll do that. In the meantime, please, we have shared the link to the pre-webinar survey in the chat. We earlier on shared it via email, but if you haven't completed that already, there's opportunity for you to do so now as we wait for more people to join in. So kindly refer to the message in the chat, the link is there, and help us meet your expectations by filling that form. It will take less than 5 minutes for you to do so. So please, as we wait, kindly take the time to complete that pre-webinar survey. Thank you very much.
And may I humbly suggest that, regardless of how many people have joined, we start by a particular time, because otherwise we reward those who come late and we punish those who come early. So it's only 4 minutes past 10. I appreciate that. But we need to have a particular time that we start, regardless of how many people are in the room. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your suggestion. Okay, it's 5 minutes past 10, and I'd like for us to begin officially the conversation. So let me take this opportunity to Welcome everybody who's joined us. It is the fourth webinar in our climate webinar series under the project Amplifying Gender-Responsive Climate Action through Social Media Engagement. Now, this series is being implemented by GenSet in partnership with SIGRA. And together we're using these conversations to raise awareness, share knowledge, and make sure that women, youth, and persons with disability are right at the center of Ghana's climate action story. Now, just to recap, the first three webinars in the series examined the gender dimensions of climate change, its impact, also how to leverage technology for climate accountability, and how Ghana's National Adaptation Plan, the NAP, can meet the practical needs of the most vulnerable groups affected by climate change, particularly women, youth, and PWDs. Today's discussion focuses on a theme that is very close to our hearts: women as agents of resilience, stories of climate leadership and resilience. And it's important because across the country and even around the world, women are doing incredible things. They're championing sustainable farming and climate smart innovations in rural areas. These are the real stories of leadership that don't always make the headlines, but they show what resilience truly looks like. So in this session, we want to highlight some of these inspiring examples, discuss the barriers women still face, and explore how national efforts like the NAP can better reflect their experiences and solutions. So thank you all for taking time to join us. My name is Regina Bolibote and I work with GenSet. I'll be moderating the session. Before we begin, a few quick notes on the format. The webinar will last 90 minutes. We'll start with presentations from our speakers. We'll follow that with a moderated discussion where I'll ask a few follow-up questions to dive deeper, and then we'll open the floor for questions, comments, and reflections in our Q&A segment. We want this to be as engaging as possible, so please feel free to use the chat box actively. Once again, thank you all for making time to join us today. Let's meet our speakers. Our first speaker is a lawyer and environmentalist who's known for her dedicated advocacy for environmental conservation. She has a long history of advocacy and activism around the issue of climate change, dating back as far as the 1980s, both here in Ghana and in the UK. She's executive director of Eco-Conscious Citizens Group, which is working towards a clean, green, serene, and healthy environment. She's part of the campaign against bauxite mining in the Tiwa Forest Reserve that is led by Arusha, Ghana, and is very passionate about ending illegal, irresponsible mining and the ongoing ecocide. In 2021, she was honored as the MIPAD Hero of Climate Change. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our first speaker, Awula Sewa. Welcome, madam.
Thank you very much, and thanks for your professionalism. Thanks to the organizers, and thank you for everybody who has registered to come. I'm not sure I'm the best person, but I will do my best to do justice to this topic. So I've already been introduced, so there's no need for me to go into that. So we can start with slide 4.
Madam Awula Sewa,
yes.
if you could, just give me a minute to introduce our next speaker, and then we'll come to you for your presentation.
Very well.
Thank you very much. So our next speaker is Dr. Fathia Zakari. She's a doctor of medical laboratory science and currently serves as the advocacy and engagement officer at YEFL Ghana, seconded to the Empowerment for Life program. She's a passionate youth and climate activist who has led impactful climate initiatives from the community level to the national stage. Her work focuses on empowering women and young people to build resilience and take proactive action in the face of the climate crisis. Dr. Fathia Zakari, welcome to our webinar.
Thank you so much, and I'm happy to see everyone here.
Right, thank you. So let's, Madam Awula, I will now begin with you to share your reflections on women as agents of resilience, highlighting lessons and ways to link such local leadership to national policy, such as the National Adaptation Plan. Please take it away.
Right. Good morning, everybody. And as I said, I look forward to hearing from Dr. Zakari. I'm sure she'll have a lot to teach us. And because you've already introduced me, we can start with slide 4, where, or shall I say, let me start with slide 4. Regarding this presentation, we want to acknowledge the value of ancient knowledge, because there's a lot of knowledge that's already there that can be built on. And then we are using the stories of 3 women, and we also learn from history. So next slide, please. I think you're on slide 26. Yes.
Yes, so he's moving to slide 4. We're on slide 4 now? Yes.
Yeah, so we want to acknowledge the value of ancient knowledge, and then we'll be using the stories of 3 women and also we'll learn from history. So if I could please go to slide 5. Yes, somebody we should all learn about is somebody called Yakubu Sawadogo, and he was known as the man who stopped the desert. He's been featured on BBC and other outlets. Now, he used traditional farming technique. He's from Burkina Faso. He used traditional farming technique called the Zai to restore soils that had been damaged by desertification and drought. And he was known as the man who stopped the desert. Sadly, we lost him about a year or so ago. Now, coming closer to home, to Ghana, slide 6, please. Slide 6, please. Yes, coming home close to Ghana, we want to look at Hajia Rabiatu Abukari. Now, she's the director of Ripples Ghana and also a member of the Global Share Alliance. She uses the Women First Development Model, and her work has been recognized because she also protects, in the course of their work, they do with protecting natural resources. And as you can see from the photo, she received an honor. She's also the founder, if I can move to the next slide. Thank you. She's also the founder of Maltiti Enterprise, an agri-business venture. And what's important about it is that it promotes sustainable and dignifying economic opportunities. And I was featured on agriculture because, as we all know, about 70 or so percent of the agricultural workforce is women. Could you please go to the next slide? So we see that Hajia Rabiatu, she works with rural women, empowering them, and this is incredibly important. The next slide, please. She was crowned the Women's Icon of the Northern Region at Women's Icons exhibition in Tamale in 2023 in recognition of the work that she is doing. I want to quickly move to the next slide and introduce an inspiring lady known as Dorothy Kamasa. Her current research examines inclusive climate governance, and she focuses on gender, land tenure, and indigenous knowledge integration. We already learned from the Burkinabe example how important it is to rely on local knowledge. Could you please go to the next slide? Could we go to the next slide, please? She's the founder and executive director of the Center for Women and Food Security, Ghana. And she works at the nexus of climate change adaptation, gender equity, and sustainable food systems. That's Dorothy for you. And if we could go to the next slide. She leads programs supporting over 13,000 smallholder women farmers to adopt climate smart practices. This can include solar irrigation, low emission farming, agroecology, and then she co-develops localized adaptation strategies through participatory research. And this is important because the research is not just, collecting data here and there. She actually participates in it to ensure that it's going to, bring out the information that is necessary. Could I please have the next slide? As I've already said, Dorothy advocates for gender-responsive climate policies. She trains grassroots women leaders in climate risk monitoring and spearheads reforestation initiative. This is incredibly important. Her current research examines inclusive climate governance, focusing on gender and land tenure. And then moving from Dorothy, if I could have the next slide, we want to go to oyster farmers in the mangroves. And I want to introduce a lady known as Beatrice Nutepo. Now, I'll start with a quote from her. She says that mangroves play a critical role in the coastal ecosystem of Ghana. The oysters have started attaching themselves to the mangroves we have planted. And the picture shows them on their boats, and they've been planting mangroves which were disappearing because of human activity. If we could please go to the next slide. And so when you look at oyster farmers in the mangroves, they've been engaged in replanting efforts. And though it is physically demanding and often carried out under the harsh West African sun, they've begun to yield results. The oysters, which were once scarce, are slowly returning to their habitat, the new mangrove roots, offering a glimmer of hope for the future. Because as I said, as a result of human activity, the mangroves had disappeared, and therefore the oysters and other aquatic life had gone. If we could have and the picture would show that you show the boats, and you can see the mangroves they're about to plant. And the women of Chokome, which is in the Densu Delta area, they have been very active in this endeavor. They have banded together in groups like the Densu Oyster Pickers Association, creating their own rules to protect what remains of the mangroves. The association, which this is key, the association enforces strict guidelines, including a closed season, so that there will be a period where nobody can go and do anything there, to give the oysters and other, living organisms the time to also grow. Please, the next slide. So we're talking about women leaders, and the advantage of women leaders is that they are close to communities, they have credibility with the grassroots, and then they understand multiple roles of women. Leadership is rooted in empathy because you can identify with the people and what they are going through. Inclusive and empowering approach is key. And they are inspiring a new generation of eco-leaders. There was a time when it wasn't cool, but we have these women who are trying to inspire people that there are so many avenues to a livelihood. It doesn't have to be just mining.
Okay.
Could we have the next slide, please? Am I going too fast?
No, the pace is okay. Just that if you could go over what you said before the next slide you're requesting, because we lost you along the line, maybe because of connectivity issues.
I'm not sure. Was it the slide 17?
18, slide 18.
Yes. And I'm saying that women can communicate effectively, provide ecological education. One is not saying that men can't do that. Men can also do it. But each gender has its what shall I say, its peculiar advantages. And then to foster sustainable behaviors, which is very important, building resilient societies, because women can be at the heart of communities, and they are inspiring a new generation of eco-leaders and fostering the understanding that livelihoods is not just based on mining. There are other areas one can go into and get a good livelihood. If we can go to slide 19, please. I thought it was important to learn from history. So we're also looking outside Ghana to examples from history. I think we all know about Wangari Maathai, who was from Kenya. She was a social activist, political activist, and when it wasn't popular, she founded the Green Belt movement in Kenya, an environmental NGO focused on planting trees, environmental conservation, and women's rights. And her hard work paid off. In 2004, she became the first African woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize as a consequence of her environmental activism. And she has a very important quote. And she said, "It's the little things that people do that will make a difference. My little thing is planting trees." She started small, planting trees. She formed the Green Belt movement, which cascaded, and she was recognized for her work by being the first African woman to win the Nobel Prize. If I could go to the next slide, please. And then we're still taking examples from history and also showing that when we talk about climate, it's not just about gender. It's also quite clear that even elderly women have a role to play. Everybody can play its part, every section of society. So we have this group of women. The average age was 75. The average age was 75. And they decided in August 2016, a small group of women above the retirement age, they came together over their worries about climate change. They formed the association to demand more action towards meeting the target set by the 2015 Paris Agreement. So they took their government to court because in their opinion, their government wasn't doing as much. And this is the Swiss government, which is doing remarkably well, but they believe that there was more to do. They took the case to court and they actually won. And there's a small video that if there's enough time, we could play. How am I doing for time?
You're right on time.
Yes, it's a very short video. I think it's about a minute. So if you can please click on the video. Is it possible to see if the video will play?
We're checking with
If it doesn't, no worries.
our technical team. We're checking.
If it doesn't, no worries. So whilst we are waiting for the video, we're just saying that everybody has a role to play, from the young adults, everybody, including the elderly. The average age of this group of women was 75, and they still did what they wanted to do. And then I wanted to look at the impact on national policy. Whilst we are waiting for the video, it might not come on.
So I understand the video is ready. We can have a look at it. Okay. Yeah, so we can have a look at the video now.
Yes, if you can play. I think there's no sound. There's no sound.
Well, we're checking that.
Like climate change and meet targets in keeping down emissions of greenhouse gases. The basic gist of the ruling was that women's rights to effective protection from the adverse effects of climate change were violated by the terms of the European Convention on Human Rights. The women, average age 74, argued that they climate change.
I think let's not worry too much. It's not. I'm sorry. I don't think it's playing well. So it doesn't really matter. We can move on. Sorry about that.
Okay, so
I'll just quickly
that was
end
that brief video.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. So we just end quickly by looking at the impact on national policy. That's slide 23. So I'll quickly go through, it's just about 2 more slides. So we're looking at slide 23 and looking at the impacts on national policy. As I keep on saying, currently in Ghana, we face an existential threat. We're on the verge of an ecological catastrophe. So we must all shape national policy to rescue our environmental heritage, or it will be a futile exercise and academic discussion. History teaches us that when women act together, change happens. So what I want us to all take from today is that we face an existential threat and we need to all come together to see the way forward. And then if we could go to slide 24, please. We want to encourage all women leaders, in fact, everybody in this room, to support the CSO campaigns below. Because as I've said, we're on the verge of an ecological catastrophe. Our lands are being degraded, our forest reserves decimated, our water is no longer safe. Because you see, even when the water is clear, forget about the turbidity levels, even when the water is clear, it doesn't mean there's no mercury or arsenic or lead in it, because these are colorless. And so we really need to get to grips with the irresponsible mining that is currently going on. So we have called for a state of emergency in areas where illegal mining is rampant and a pause on small-scale mining. We've also asked, and government has now agreed to the revocation of LI 2462, which allowed mining in forest reserves, and EI 144, which declassified parts of Achimota Forest, the lungs of Accra. We've asked for the removals of all buildings on Ramsar sites and wetlands. We know that our wetlands are key to our ecology. And then we wanted the prosecution of all those who were named in Professor Frimpong Boateng's report. And of course, we are interested in air quality, but I think to do with this discussion, we just want to look at the importance of everybody joining the CSOs in campaigning for what would help Ghana's continuance, because as I said, we face an existential threat. Water is life, and if we continue at this rate, we will cease to exist. Thank you so much for listening, and thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Madam Awula Sewa, for that insightful presentation, giving us the history of women's leadership in climate resilience and all the stories that many people will not pay attention to, helping us to see how women are not just adapting to climate, but driving innovative responses in their communities. Thank you so much for that presentation. Let's move to our second speaker, Dr. Fathia Zakari. She will be taking us through women as agents of resilience. We'll be highlighting how women across Ghana are demonstrating resilience in the face of climate change. And we'll also talk about some of the barriers and enablers of their climate leadership. And let me say that Fathia has been doing some work up north about or on adaptation for women and youth. And so part of her presentation will focus on that work that they've been doing. And then she will end with some of the stories that she wants to highlight about how women across Ghana are demonstrating resilience in the face of the climate crisis. Fathia, welcome, and we can hear you now.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Awula, for all this presentation. I took my book and I was writing all the great stories you were mentioning, especially the last part. So I just want to dive into my presentation. This will focus mostly on young women. And I'm glad Madam Awula spoke about old women. It's going to be like a continuation of her presentation. Yes, so I'd like to, so this is me, Plantain. For those that don't know me in person, this is me, and I'll be speaking on women as agents of resilience, stories of climate leadership and resilience. This next slide. Yes, so I'd like to begin with this quote. Women around the world are not merely enduring hardship, they are leading their communities through it. From driving tractors to launching businesses and negotiating peace deals, Their resilience and determination are driving recovery efforts to rebuild lives, livelihoods, and society. So when I saw these quotes, and even when I was asked to speak on this topic, I was just thinking of all the great works women are doing up north here. And I wanted to write about many women that are doing so well. But something just prompted me after reading this quote saying that it's also an opportunity to highlight the stories or the impact I've also made in climate change. And I was like, okay, I could begin this presentation with highlighting what I have done in the climate space and also speak about what people are also doing up north here in the climate space. Please, next slide. Yes, so this is me. I had my first degree in Doctor of Medical Laboratory Science at the University for Development Studies. And one may ask, what is someone doing with this degree in climate change? So this is something that I keep telling people when I meet on platforms that irrespective of the course you study in the university or irrespective of where you're coming from, climate change is a business for all. It doesn't need to focus on the background you have. You just have to understand it and keep fighting for the change we all want to. So yeah, even though mid my course, I was trying to, because I wanted to achieve the change I wanted to achieve, I was trying to make peace with what I really wanted, because the Ghanaian system of health is so different from other systems. So I just had to complete the course and also alongside doing some few volunteerism. So before I completed, I started doing some volunteerism to buttress the course I was doing. I did volunteerism in peace, youth, health, women, and that gave me an opportunity to even intern with Year for Ghana, which I was interning as an advocacy intern and campaigns. So I began advocating and campaigning with respect to youth development. And I think that was the opportunity, or that was the platform where I heard that word, climate change. So even in my 5th year of education, I wasn't even hearing climate change, or my mind was not even in climate change. But after I started interning with Yafo Ghana as an organization, these words started coming up. So I was so interested in climate change. What is it that people are really talking about? What is it that we, those up north, are not really paying attention to it? So I began studying about climate change, and I was getting some interest in it. I was like, okay, this is something that we will be most hit when it becomes severe, and people are not really talking about it up north. What's the issue? So that's when, fortunately, next slide. Fortunately, we're able to get a climate resilient project called the Guada project with a partnership with CLIP in Tamale here. So we're to focus on vulnerable communities in some districts in northern parts of Ghana. We're looking at Nantong, Kumbungu, Solong, and Sablugu. So with the main aim of this project was to target women. So we have a group of women we work with and young girls. And we also have we have about like 60% of these women. We put them into farmer groups, which we call the smallholder farmer groups, and also have younger people that we call youth environmental brigades. So the younger ones between the ages of 18 to like 25 to 29 were kept into a group we call the youth environmental brigade, and the smallholder farmers, like the older women, were kept into farmer groups to be able to benefit from this project. So we're just much focused on, you see my project will be geared towards you young women, because that was mostly the role I played in this project, focusing on more young people and young women to be precise, to be able to build their capacity. But most of the projects that come or interventions that come in target the older women because they are kept in smaller groups, farmer groups. So we were deliberate about targeting young people. Please, next slide. Yes, so this is me. Don't mind the picture of the boys. The ladies are sitting at my left side of this presentation. So in this phase, or when I started working on this Go Adapt project, our one task was that we had to build the capacity of these young women and men in climate change. I must be honest with you that there was little knowledge about climate change. That was 3 years back in northern Ghana. People could relate to what was happening, but they didn't actually know what climate change was. So the beauty about this project was targeting rural youth. So these are young people that come from typical rural communities, not really the urban ones. So we target young women in the rural communities to build their capacity, because we wanted a situation where when we are no more existing, they can speak for themselves, they can able to influence policies from the grassroots and also comment on climate issues in the community and above. This next slide. Yes. So yes, so even though I was playing the role of an advocacy and an engagement officer, it was a kind of a slippery task because you had to connect people from the grassroots to the national level. So you see in this picture that we are with the NAP coordinator, Dr. Entry, and also we had to meet the late minister, Mutala, to discuss these issues because we conducted a vulnerability assessment at the grassroots level, the community levels, and we had some findings that we had to speak to them directly because we didn't want to pass through a lot of change. But that's one key thing we missed, especially in up north, the platforms. Women don't have the platforms to air their views. Women don't have the platform to communicate what they want to communicate, tell their own stories. They don't have the platform. So that's why even me personally, I saw this as a platform to tell the story of the work I do, to highlight also the vulnerable voices of these young women. So this the team meeting Dr. Entry of NAP to present the vulnerability assessment we did. So these are some of the successes we gained from the project. We're able to train 120 young people to be youth environmental brigades in these 4 districts. So I'll tell you a story about the women in this aspect when it comes to later on in my slide. Also, I had to enhance my knowledge in climate change because I had a background in Doctor of Medical Laboratory. So even though I have the bare understanding and the basics of climate change, it was also in depth for me to also go and find knowledge under especially the National Adaptation Plan, which we have key interest in. So you see me participating in workshop. This was the National Adaptation Plan workshop we were doing with the district assemblies to highlight some of the issues. And also, I'm the only female in my team. So you see in this picture, I'm the only girl in the middle, and we are a team of 8 strong men, and so it's the 7 strong men and 1 female. I'm the only female in the team that was supposed to drive this project to the end. And I must say that I'm very, very proud with the achievements that has been done and has been received, especially with the NAP. Please, next slide. Okay, so the down part is the women group we met with, or those we are working with. We're discussing their issues of their vulnerability. They also meet themselves to have their own discussion because they benefit from, or they also undercarry some financial discussions that we call the VSLA, Village Savings and Loan, which they use to support their solar powered irrigation farm we established for them. So we put them into groups like this. We establish a solar power irrigation farm where they can farm vegetables throughout the year. And they also make some savings to be able to support the farm, especially in terms of maybe fertilizers and all that, or things they need to buy. I also proud to say that I organized the first ever biking and walking against climate change in Tamale to create more awareness because more people really don't have much knowledge and also the interest in knowing what climate change is. So we decided to organize that. I also work with the NAF Secretariat. As you can see, we are part of the workshops that they organize, especially for the assemblies to contribute to the National Adaptation Plan. Next slide, please. Yes, so we also organized the first ever pre-COP in Tamale. these are deliberate organization because people of Tamale, we are not seeing the interest, or should I say the interest is there, but we are not seeing the plan, we're not seeing the conversation, we're not seeing the actions, because we see people still litter, choke gas, irrespective of the irregular rainfall, the flooding. They are not taking action the way we want them to take action. So we decided to organize a Northern pre-COP, where we brought people from different parts of Northern Ghana to discuss. We're thinking about starting a conversation and setting up a Northern Climate Adaptation Fund, where we can have our own fund. We contribute to that fund to be able to undertake adaptations, issues or adaptations in Northern Ghana. So these are some of the challenges. I think a slide has been skipped. The slide about the young woman I wanted to talk about is not part here, but these are the challenges that we faced. So I don't know if that slide could be shared. No, I think it's in the second one I shared. So can I project?
Yeah, go ahead. You can project if this slide is not reflected in this one.
Okay. Sorry for time. Please,
Okay,
can we
as
see my
we wait for Dr. Zakari to project a particular slide. Okay, is
Can,
it showing?
can you see my slide?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So this is a young girl from Pong in Savilugu district. She's called Hanifa. And during our recruitment of these young people, we realized that most of the ladies between the ages of 18 to 25 were nowhere to be found in the community. Some had migrated to the south for Kaya year or greener pastures, while those available were married with kids, and there was issues of their husbands not agreeing for them to be part of the project. So you realize that even the husband can be part of the farmer group, but he's very reluctant for his wife to be part of the project, especially when she's a very young person. So this is Hanifa, that she has completed senior high. She's married with kids, and she's the most vibrant among all the young people in this group. What she does is that we've trained her on how to speak on radio. So she speaks on radio to discuss climate issues. And this is her also presenting. We took them for a climate innovation challenge, which she represents. She was the one presenting for their group to highlight what they wanted to do, and actually they won their competition. So she's someone that really, really inspires me personally, someone that has shown that marriage is not a barrier for her. So she keeps doing the way she's supposed to do, and we are really, really proud of her. She's a young, very, very young person. And the next, yes, so the next person is Zulaiha, the lady in the middle. She's the only lady among the team from their community we recruited. Most of them were out, and she's someone that she's extremely shy. She can't speak in public. When we met her, she couldn't speak in public, but we took her through a series of training. Now she leads climate innovations and climate discussions in her community. And she also leads the radio discussion. She speaks about climate. Because she was so shy and very young, when she speaks, people listen to her. When she goes, "Oh, we heard you on radio. You were speaking on. You're saying we should do this and we should plant trees and that." So it gave us some recognition in the community. And anytime even other NGOs come into their community, they want to engage with her because she understands the issues and she's able to communicate. Yeah, so this is the irrigation farm we established for the women farmer groups. And you can see the women busy working on every morning. They go to work on it, and in the evening they go to work on it. We've had a lot of positive feedback from them, because now they farm all year round. They sell their vegetables all year round. They don't need to go and do kaya during the dry season and come back to do that. And this has also boosted their confidence in their homes, because some of them, I remember one lady was telling us that now it has the attention the husband gives her is too much, because she always have money. Anytime she always sells and makes money. She always have money, so she gets a lot of attention now from her husband. And now even when she speaks, the husband listens. So money is speaking. We get those kind of feedback. Yeah. So that's it about these women. And yeah, so this is me. I'll end by saying resilience is not a privilege, it's a survival skill. I didn't see it anywhere, but that's what I think. Being resilient is not a privilege, it's a survival skill for you, especially in our modern world. You need to be very, very resilient. Yeah. Thank you for your audience.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fathia Zakari, for that presentation. And your perspective's very important because it's showing the intergenerational nature of this conversation. We heard earlier Madam Aula Sewa speak about women, older women, and what they're doing as far as leadership and resilience is concerned. And then you've brought in this perspective of young women, youth who are not letting their circumstances define and determine their ability to participate in conversations relating to climate change and adaptation. So we really appreciate this perspective you've brought to that conversation. And for now, we'll move on to the moderated discussion. A couple of questions and points of clarification from both of the presentations. But let me say to participants in the meeting, if you have any comment, question, or reflection, you can first start by typing them in the chat box, and then at some point in time would allow people to speak and ask their questions, if that's okay with you. So any burning question that you have right now, please type it in the chat box. Any comment, any reflection, let us read from you in the chat box, and at the appropriate time we'll allow you to speak. Now, again, thank you very much to our speakers for the depth of knowledge and insights you've brought to this conversation. So let me start with you, Madam Aula Sewa. Now, from your presentation, you made us understand how women are on the wheels of change, and they are not just acting from places of being vulnerable, but as active agents of change. Do you see that this personal agency that these women that you've highlighted showed, do you see that the women of now have in Ghana have that personal agency to fight climate change, to exhibit resilience in the face of these climate stresses?
I think they do. I think that throughout time, women have always been resilient. If we look at our family structures, you look at even the market women, everywhere you go, you can see that women have been at the heart of things. They haven't always been as vocal. They haven't always been as vocal. But even if you look at other fields, even our independence movement, we have people like Dede Ashikinsha who were there. And maybe we don't hear much about them, but it doesn't mean they were not there. But I think now they are becoming, their voices are being heard more than before. So that can only be a good thing.
As a follow-up, Madam Awolasewa, as a follow-up, are there any unique qualities or maybe community roles that make women effective leaders in local adaptation initiatives?
Well, I mean, for me, I've always said that both men and women are equally important, but the only unique role women play is that they are the heart of the family. Maybe their heartbeat is closer to what is going on. That is why you have the saying that when you educate a woman, you've educated a village. Whereas when you educate a man, you might have educated the individual. It's just where they are at, bringing up the children and acting as mothers. So what they have can carry more weight in the sense that they are, how shall I say it? They are feeling it more. And so when they're speaking from things that they have experienced. So that's what I would say is a unique role of women, how they can communicate what is going on, and how they are actually the ones in many communities feeling the brunt of whether it's climate change, they feel the brunt of it. So they can speak from a position of what I'm going through, not what somebody is telling me.
Very well. I'll come to you again to talk about the barriers, but let's go to Dr. Fathia Zakari. In your presentation, you did mention that your organization did some vulnerability assessments. If you could highlight some of the findings in these assessments that you did relating to youth and women as far as climate change is concerned.
Yes, thank you so much. I think when we conducted it with our partners, CLIP, we realized that most all of them, all the 4 districts, women were the most vulnerable. And they made mention of issues of like now the drying up of streams, it's just almost dry. So it makes it difficult for them to even fetch water. And also they've cut most of the trees down. So they don't even have more trees to cut down. And it's making sure that like when it floods, the whole place, when it rains, the whole place floods because there are no more trees around. There are a lot of holes, or let's say when they take it out, the dark place, there's a lot of holes that make their whole community flood. And also the farm produce. Now, it doesn't rain like the way it should. Like last year, I know you heard of the dry spell in northern Ghana. It's affecting them big time because they mostly farm vegetables and sell. But now, because of the irregular rainfall pattern, it's affecting their livelihoods. It's making them even have a like indirect conflict at home because they feel they don't provide the way they're supposed to provide, and it brings a lot of issues among even at home. So they highlighted a few, which I've mentioned already, but most of the time their livelihoods is the most affected, their livelihoods, because all what they do is agriculture, farming. That is all what they, and now the system has changed. The climate has stepped in, so it affects them a lot. Well, but we're able to come in to support. Yeah, so that was some of the challenges they highlighted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And since we're speaking about challenges, Madam Mola, so I'll come to you. The barriers that hinder women from demonstrating their resilient capacity, their ability to adapt. What are some of these barriers within the context of Ghana, knowing that women are heavily reliant on agriculture?
Yes, I think that just before I answer this question, first of all, thank you so much, Dr. Zakari, for highlighting this very important point about the drying up of streams and the cutting down of the trees. You know, that's why I was saying that any conversation we are having, it has to be prefaced with the existential threat we are facing from human activity, whether it's from illegal logging and more importantly, from the irresponsible mining that is going on. Because a lot of the rivers are being diverted, and then they're being also poisoned. And as was rightly said, when you have the drying up of streams, and we know that most of the agricultural workforce is women. According to our information, more than 70% of women are in the, when you talk about agriculture, they are very highly represented. So if the streams are drying up, they are the ones who go and fetch the water. So where are they going to fetch the water from? And they'll have to travel further and further and sometimes spend more money in buying water. So this is really causing a threat. Now, when you're talking about barriers for women, it sometimes has been having their voices heard. But I think now those barriers are being are not as strong as they used to be, although they are still there. But women are becoming more vocal and are speaking up more. And I think that it's not just a question of speaking up, it's their voices being amplified. And that is what is taking place now in different forums, so that the challenges they face are being highlighted, whereas before that wasn't the case. And they can now even do it themselves, be agents of change themselves, rather than have other people telling their stories, because they know exactly what they are going through. And it's better than other people, saying it. Yes. So
Just
I
as a
can't
follow-up.
stress.
Okay.
Yes, please
Go
go on.
ahead.
Please go on. No, please
So
go
I was
ahead.
going to say as a follow-up, yes, women are regaining their voices are being amplified to tell their stories. But as far as challenges go, and I mean challenges and barriers go, we know of cultural and traditional practices and norms that sort of decrease women's ability to fight climate change. For instance, land rights for women. Many people cite that as one example or one barrier that is hindering women's ability to adequately respond to climate change. You have any thoughts to share on that?
Well, I mean, I do know that that is a very real challenge in certain areas, So again, it depends on where they are, and I know that, for example, Arocha, Ghana, and others are doing advocacy on that, and that is why I think there are policies coming about to give, for example, to have women and so forth, so that if it's a question of finance, the women can have access to it. So yes, access to land is an issue, which is a barrier depending on the area you're in. But I think the point I'm making is that it's a big issue. But even when you have the land, if we don't deal with the fundamental problem of the destruction of the land, for example, the Ghana Peasant Farmers Association tells us that over 2.5 million farmers are at the risk of losing their livelihood as a consequence of illegal mining. So even if you were to have access to the land, which is very, very important, even those who have access to the land, they are being displaced by the illegal miners. Sometimes they'll come and their farms have been, just dug up by the irresponsible miners. So we need to tackle those at the same time. That yes, access to land is vital. How are you going to farm if you don't have the access to land? But even when you do have access to it and it's being destroyed by irresponsible people, then we do have a problem, don't we?
Certainly. Dr. Zakaria, same question about the challenges and barriers to women's ability to adapt and be resilient in the face of climate change. Madam Awula Sewa spoke about the need for their voices to be amplified. She's spoken about the need for practices that protect the land, special mention to Galamsey, and women's land rights. But I'd like for you to share in your experiences and interactions with the women you've worked with under this project. How are women navigating around the issue of access and use of climate information technology and other resources to be able to adapt effectively?
Yeah, thank you so much. Looking at what has happened, what Madam just made mention, if you come up north here, most of the farmlands, even women own, are mostly family lands. Like maybe your dad had the land or gave it out and you are using, or sometimes the chief give out land for agricultural purposes. So when that happens, because of the absence of registration or ownership of the land, when there's a new regime or a different chief that is there, or maybe even the family, the head of the family has passed and all that, some of these of it seems to say the men, they take over the land and sell the land. It's a way they need money. When in the family, when there is a need for money or the need for money arises, they prefer to sell the land of a woman than to the man selling his own land. So it's kind of a dicey issue, and as Madam mentioned, people are working around that to see if there'll be some improvement on that. But not sure, because Tamale is opening, it's just a huge challenge. Agricultural lands are being sold for buildings and all that. Is a huge challenge. And maybe the fortunate thing right now in Tamale and its environment, like there is no really mining, but the deforestation is very high, which is still having an effect of on this farmland. But for women, as we always made mention, that vulnerability is so high when it comes to women and land, and everywhere you find yourself in the country, I think it's a major issue people will look at. But nevertheless, I think we are still making progress in that. People are being taught how to register their own lands, and especially the women, and they also speak up. That's part of the discussions this youth environmental brigade started in the Savlugu Nantong district. We also started creating awareness on radios that women should register their lands, irrespective of how much it will cost. It's better to register it now than to lose it later, to prevent they losing their lands. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zakari, for that response. Just a quick reminder, you can send in any questions or comments or reflections you have about the conversations we're having now. And you can also gesture and we will let you speak or ask your question. Let me come back to you, Madam Awulase. While we're speaking about challenges, of course, there should be an opportunity somewhere in there. What kind of support systems do you think that women need to strengthen their resilience to climate change?
Well, I mean, they do need, as we've said, access to finance so that they can, as you said, strengthen their resilience. And we've already talked about access to land and the challenges that are involved. And one thing that I think women should continue doing, what they are doing very well, is to form the cooperatives, because we are always stronger together, and then we can share each other's burdens, to put it that way. But more importantly, the skills that can be put together to harness everything we have, use it in common, and then be able to tackle the problems that we have. I think that is a very important way forward. So yes, access to finance is important, access to the land, and then also to also going back to ancient knowledge and using all the skills we have together to maximize what it is that we have.
Do you see that there is enough commitment to support the resilience and adaptive capacity of women to climate change in Ghana?
We pay a lot of lip service, I will say, and I know that the organizations that are providing a lot of support, but I'm not quite sure that it's at the heart of what we are doing. So it's good when more and more women are speaking out about what it is that they do need and the protections that they need, because for example, we know that I think in the northern part of Ghana, the shea trees, for instance, we know how long it takes for them to grow. And then we know that some of them are indiscriminately just cut for firewood. So we need to have, other interventions in place where there are some projects that have gone on but have not been replicated, where there are specific types of trees that are specifically grown for, let's say, for example, charcoal, so that you don't go and cut down, for example, a shea butter tree that takes, I stand to be corrected, about 20 years or so to grow. So I think more needs to be done in terms of interventions, and there's been a lot of progress, but I'm not quite sure that we're putting it at the heart of policy.
So there's a disconnect between what is said and what is actually done.
I think
there's a disconnect. Okay, great. Yes. I want Dr. Fafia to answer this question as well, because you're in the space. Talk to us about your thoughts, whether there is enough support to strengthen the resilience of women to climate change.
Just as Madam Awula spoke, especially working in the CSOs, we realize that some of the interventions do focus on that, but what I don't really see much is the government commitment to that. Of course, CSOs, we have a lot of interventions CSOs do come in to support, but you can't do it all without government also participating. So it just even yesterday, I was having a discussion with a friend that just like the way government has set up alternative livelihoods for the mining communities to take them out of galamsey. I think it is so best for us to target these hotspots of charcoal burning and also roll out an alternative livelihood program for them to also participate and leave the charcoal burning business, because you can't tell them to stop when they don't have another alternative. So there's something we're just discussing yesterday, seeing how we can have an advocacy around that, but we would like to do some research around that before. That's because it's a very, very big issue here in the Savannah region. They have the most trees, they have beautiful forests, but they also have the high charcoal burning rate in the region. And so yes, I would say it's like a 50-50, but we need more hands on deck to be able to achieve what we want to achieve. Thank you.
Very well, Dr. Fatia Zakari. Since we're talking about commitment and support, we might as well want to discuss how to link this strong leadership shown by women at the local level to national policy. And I think, Madam Awolasewa, you did touch a bit on that in your presentation, but pointedly, how can policymakers ensure that women's voices and experiences inform climate planning and resource allocation?
Yeah, thank you very much. Before I answer that, can I please thank Dr. Zakari? I think she made a very important point when she was talking about the alternative livelihood for, people who are burning trees for charcoal. I think that's very important. We always seem to put the environmental terrorists, the miners, at the heart of everything, but we forget that. What about those who are burning trees and so on and so on? But what I want to say very clearly is that burning of the trees, just like illegal mining, is criminal activity. So you cannot say that because you don't have a livelihood, you're going to engage in criminal activity. So we need to be quite clear that it's criminal activity, which is a criminal offense which should be punished, whilst at the same time looking for alternatives. So, for example, not having a livelihood is no excuse to poison all Ghanaians, 34 million Ghanaians, because you don't have a livelihood. And then coming to the burning, the fact that you don't have charcoal doesn't mean you should go and burn shea butter trees, which takes so long to grow. But having said that, policy should also take that into consideration and look at alternatives. And I did mention this project, I've forgotten the name, but I think Energy Commission pioneered it to grow this. Is it a whitlow tree? I'm not quite sure, but it's grown specifically to be used as charcoal. But then coming back to what you said about policy, we need to be sort of having some joined up thinking, and we need the women's groups to link up with other CSOs so that their concerns are taken to the heart of government, that we need to put this in our manifestos, put some of the the barriers that need removing, put things into our laws, and then pass laws that actually are dealing with the difficulty that is there, so that there's no disconnect. But they need to link up more, and there needs to be two-way traffic. They are on the ground, they know exactly what is going on. They link up with CSOs who will also carry it forward and ensure that these are enacted into law, and so that the challenges are dealt with and the barriers removed. So it's not just paying lip service. It's not just paying lip service. I mean, I know that when the barrier of finance was raised, that is why I believe this administration is talking about having women's only banks. I'm not quite sure that just having a women's only bank is a solution, but at least women need to have access to quick finance and not have so many loops to run after before they can get the much needed finance to do what is needed.
Thank you very much, Madam Awolasewa. Dr. Zakaria, is a similar question because we're talking about policy, and in this specific case, we have a framework, the National Adaptation Plan. We know that your organization has worked in ensuring that there is some level of youth engagement as far as the NAP is concerned. So this question, I think, is best suited for you. In what ways can the NAP and other climate-related frameworks better reflect and support women's leadership and resilience?
Okay, thank you so much. I've been saying that if only government could put in energy, like when they are drafting their manifesto. I don't know if you see a party drafting its manifesto. They'll go to every corner of this country to get ideas to draft a manifesto. But when it comes to policy, they will just be like, okay, please can we get a women group? Okay, this women group come, or the leader come. Let's see, let's discuss. So rather, there's a lot of disconnections because if you are just sampling some people and you want to say it's gender inclusive or it's friendly to women and young people, you realize that it's just a few ideas on board you are going to get to develop that policy, making us have that disconnection. So I've been saying that moving forward, for policy drafting, I think we need to invest more money at the local level. It could even be like part of, if the government knows I'm supposed to draft this policy for this number of years, it will be part of this assembly common fund they give to the assembly, just like the way they give guidelines for the expenditure. There could be an expenditure on maybe policy drafting. So the assembly will go down there to get the information. I know they draft their DAPs and their CAPs, the community adaptation plans and the district adaptation plans, which they incorporate into their medium-term development. But they also don't do in-depth because of their funds. They are restricted. They are not able to go into deeper communities to get the knowledge they need to draft it. So I think we need to have more funding for policy drafting to make it more inclusive for everyone. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So if I get you right, insufficient funds restricts the extent to which even district assemblies can consult and engage before they draft climate-related policies.
Yes, please.
Okay, that's a good point. Well noted. We're taking questions, comments, and reflections. And if you have one, you could always just try and we would let you speak. There's one in the chat box currently from AJ. Says, I'd like to know what makes women-led adaptation initiatives effective. So that's a question. What makes women-led adaptation initiatives effective? And this is to both speakers. Madam Awolasewa, you can take the first bite.
I mean, I think that a good initiative would be effective, but the challenge is that, is it the right intervention that's being put in place? So when it's coming from people who are actually the ones who are feeling it, the ones who are the heart of it, then it should be that because they have come up with it, they know that this is what will help us. So if this is what is made into policy, it should be effective, because it shouldn't necessarily be a gender case. A good policy is a good policy, but how do you get a good policy? You need somebody on the ground who's actually facing the problem, who can say that if you did this, this is what would help, rather than somebody else sitting somewhere else who, with all the good intentions in the world, may not be actually able to come up with an effective policy, or it might be effective in one area, but not necessarily in another area. So you need it from those on the ground who actually know what is going on, who have experienced it.
That a good policy should be reflective of the realities, the lived realities of the very people that it's supposed to benefit.
Exactly.
Okay. Dr. Zakaria, what's your take on the question? What makes women-led adaptation initiatives effective?
I think I want to agree with Madam Awola. with letting the right people be part of the drafting. For my experience on the ground, women-led initiatives have really, really been impactful, and we actually get the result. When you give them an intervention, or when you give them an intervention or a task for them to implement, especially as a group, from my experience, it has been really, really effective, especially rural women, with much emphasis on that rural women. They really, really carry out interventions for they themselves to benefit from it. So I think that the right people, as Madam Awala mentioned, if they're in the room, will actually get the right policy and get the right results we want. Thank you.
Thank you. We're still inviting questions. There's one in the chat box from Yakubu Yidana. I hope I got the pronunciation right. It says, what future initiatives are being put in place to reduce waste, to create value? That's a question from Yakubu Yidana. I come to you, Dr. Zakaria, first.
Please. So, future in yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I've seen that there is a lot of recycling, especially down south, because of the waste in the sea, the beaches. So we have a lot of recycling organizations there that are making good use of this waste to create value. So I think that we need more of such in most parts of the country, and also the implementation of policies like the ban of plastics. I've always been an advocate for the ban of plastics, because that's a major waste we create in Ghana. I think some few years back it was to be implemented, and the government had a backlash. So I'm really an advocate for the ban of plastics. I've seen it work in Rwanda, and I've seen it work in Tanzania. So this is something that we can start with, but also get alternative resources to curb the waste we are having. For instance, we at in the communities, what we do is that, especially with the waste from farm produce, after they harvest and they leave the stock of the plants like maize, the remaining of the after they harvest, and also animal droppings, they are able to use to produce what we call compost. So we teach them on compost making, where they use animal droppings and also residues from crops to create compost for their farms. So they use organic compost instead of this inorganic one. So there are also so many ways of placing value on waste. Yeah, so we can look at that. And it's also a learning platform for people. Maybe the government can also, or other organizations can also create more capacity buildings on these waste usage. Yeah, thank you.
Very well. Madam Awula Sawa, Yakubu's
Yeah,
question, what future initiatives are being put in place to reduce waste to create value?
I think that's a very good question. And I'm very happy that Dr. Zakari has talked about plastic waste. I mean, we are also for the ban of single-use plastics. And as you rightly said, much of East Africa, whether Tanzania, Rwanda, a lot of these countries have successfully banned single-use plastics. And most of if you look at our gutters and things, they're full of plastic. And then I think we have to be a bit more innovative. It says that one man's waste is another man's treasure. When we look at, for example, farm waste, I know that in, I believe it's Indonesia and other places, they're using plantain waste to produce disposable plates. So that, of course, is degradable. Then I also know that, for example, sanitary towels, some are using whether banana or plantain waste to do that. So there's a lot we can do with that. And I know that there was an organization that was trying to use cassava waste to do disposable bags that could replace plastics. So there's a lot that we can do. And that is where I think a lot of funding should go into how we can recycle waste. So that not so much goes to our landfills or, it's creating sanitary conditions, but we use them productively, whether it's coconut. There was a group that was using coconut waste to produce charcoal. There's so much we can do, and that's where a lot of funding can do, and that can also create livelihoods.
Very well. So this is turning out to be a great learning platform. We're learning that programs and initiatives in climate change adaptation, disaster risk reduction, when they value women's capabilities and experiences and ingenuity, the results are transformative, not just for the women, but also for their families. There's one question before I come and take your closing remarks because we're wrapping up. There's one question in the chat from Lucy, and it says, "Thank you for the great presentation. Following the youth climate change training, did you observe any behavioral or community level changes as a result of the capacity building initiatives or efforts?" I think this question is directed to you, Dr. Zachary.
Yes, thank you for that question. I think that was one of the amazing things I realized. I like results. When I do an activity, I always want to get results from that activity. So I realized that the young people actually, without any push or further initiative, they take up their own initiatives and they post about it. Like for instance, we spoke about felling down of trees. They should sensitize their community on that. After that, you realize that when anybody that fell trees for charcoal, you see the young people themselves reporting on that and even trying themselves to go to EPA, take seedlings to go and plant. This is something we've not asked them to do. But immediately they got to understand that this is what we need to do to help curb the challenges. They are doing it on their own. And it's something that amazed me. And I must say that, frankly speaking, even though I'm still in the youth bracket, the difference between rural youth and urban youth in taking initiatives, there's a lot of difference there. So yes, we had a lot of we saw changes, and we also harvested a lot of results from the up to now. They are still implementing their own initiatives. Some are even doing school to school campaigns or in youth groups in their local dialect, educating them on climate change, which we never asked them to do. So I think there's been a behavioral change among the young people.
Okay, that's an interesting point, and I don't want to drill, but I'm tempted to. So when you say there's a difference between the urban youth and rural youth, what do you mean? Can you give us an example, like exactly what you mean?
Yeah, so taking myself for example, because for us, because of also where we live, we think about survival. You have to survive, you have to pay bills, you have to upgrade yourself, like education and all that. So as much as you would like to do volunteerism, you're also looking at your survival aspect. You also need to make income. But for a rural young person, he is just focused on his farming. He or she's focused on his farming, on his or her farming. When he goes to the farm and come, he has the whole day to himself to do other things. So you see, sometimes they use this opportunity to take actions that they wanted to take or what they are asked to do. But for us, so you see that ever you can have a training and be like, after the training ends there, or until maybe another training. It's just one or two people. I'm not saying it's for all. One or two people that will take an extra step to start up their own things or to volunteer to do something or to share what they have learned. That's just the difference, but not all. I'm putting emphasis on not all.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the explanation. We're wrapping up. There's one more question, and let's just take that question. I'll direct it to you, Madam Ola Sewa. So this is Madina Tuseidu. Says, how can we create safe and inclusive spaces for women to contribute meaningfully to these quote unspoken unquote areas of climate conversation, and how do we ensure the women's lived experiences local knowledge are valued, even when the topics are considered too controversial to address? Madam Olasewa.
I think it
This is a
all
packed
boils down.
question.
It is packed, but I think it all boils down to whether we have the will to take what they are saying into consideration or not. And then it's up to the women who are organized to ensure that what they say is carried forward wherever their voice will be magnified, and so that their proposals will be taken into consideration. We can have, different formats, but the women are together. If they're in their cooperatives, they can discuss issues. They can discuss that this is what we need. I mean, to digress a bit, when you have fair trade, for example, with the cocoa growing areas, there's something known as the fair trade premium, and the communities decide how they want it to be used. So they meet up and then they decide whether it's a clinic they want or whether it's a school they want. They come together, and what they decide is what takes place. We can use that kind of thing for women to decide what kind of interventions they need, and then make sure that it's taken forward to those who can implement what they are saying. It's not easy, but I think it's not difficult either, where the will is there.
Very well. So let's take Madam Olasewa, your closing remarks as we wrap up this conversation. I'm tempted to throw in a question in there. Maybe I should. How citizens can support women-led resilience efforts in their communities. So if you can answer that and tie in your closing remarks, that'll be very much appreciated.
I'll do my best. I just think that all of us need to understand that we are interdependent. We rely on each other. So we need to be a bit open to what is going on, and then to see how we can support. What I would say is that I just want to say a big thank you to the organizers. And I want to thank you for your excellent moderating and your professionalism. And I want to thank Dr. Zakari. I think she was brilliant as well. And I have learned a lot coming on this webinar. I've learned a lot, but I really want to end with an appeal. And my appeal is to everybody listening, everybody who is in this space. I don't want to sound like a sport record, but we are facing an existential threat, and we are on the verge of an ecological catastrophe. So we must all add our voices to the call for a targeted state of emergency, whether it affects you directly or not. And we should all be concerned about the fact that our water is being poisoned. Our foodstuffs are not safe. We heard about the contumely, and it's not just limited to the contumely. I think we all need to speak out about our forests that are being decimated. And I think that unless all Ghanaians understand that we face an existential threat, all the discussions we're having, in a sense, will be an intellectual exercise. Because if the Titanic is sinking, rearranging the tables is not going to help. We need to stop the Titanic from sinking. And I think that we all need to be interested in what is going on, the existential threat we face, on the verge of an ecological catastrophe. Kidney disease has gone up 4 times. Ghana Water is telling us that they need to increase what we are paying, because they can't keep up because of the illegal mining. I don't even like to call it galamsey. I want to call it illegal mining. So that's my plea to everybody in this space. Join the fight, and remember that illegal mining directly affects you, whether you see it or not.
Thank you very much, Madam Olasewa. I like your reference to the Titanic. In fact, when it's sinking, you shouldn't gather your band to be playing music. Thank you so much for that. I'll come to you, Dr. Zakaria, for your closing remarks. And just like I did with Madam Olasewa, I just want to chip in a question in there. What message or advice would you share with young women aspiring to be climate leaders? And tie that in with your closing remarks.
Okay, thank you so much. One message I would like to tell young leaders or those aspiring to be climate leaders is what I've been telling myself, is to seek knowledge, irrespective of where you are. Seek knowledge on what you want to do, and also be passionate about what you want to actually do. The reason why I'm saying seek knowledge is that you can have an intellectual discussion on whatever you are doing, because climate change itself is a very complex area that they are in grades. Honestly, they are in grades because we have the local, you have the national, you have the international, and they all have their languages being spoken. So we need to start from somewhere, which I did. I think I had to start from somewhere as a medical laboratory scientist to be able to be where I am today. So that's just the message I have for young people. And to end the discussion, I want to say a very big thank you to everyone here joining this. Without you, we aren't there. And also to talk about the Galamsey. I'm an active Galamsey activist that I have always been using my social media platforms to advocate. This is a matter for everyone, irrespective of your location, and it should be devoid of politics. That is our major challenge in this Galamsey fight, is the politics that is giving us this problem. So we want all young people to stand up against it. We've done it before, and I think we can do it again. We have to join this fight. And thank you so much for the opportunity, Miss Regina. Actually, I'll call you Miss Bote. Thank you so much. And to our audience, thank you and have a blessed week.
Thank you so much to you, to Dr. Fathia Zakari, and thank you to you, Madam Awula Sewa, for those very insightful, brilliant conversations and presentations. It's been an inspiring session, I must say. We've had some very powerful stories and reflections that remind us that women aren't just victims of climate change, they are drivers of solutions and resilience. On behalf of Gensaid and Tigra, we want to say a big thank you to you, our speakers, for sharing these insights, and to everyone who joined us and asked questions one way or the other. Thank you so much. Let's keep the conversation going, either on social media, in our workplaces, and of course in our communities. We know that women's leadership works, and we have to ensure that women's leadership continues to shape Ghana's climate future. Thank you once again for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Just to say that we will put the link to our post-webinar survey in the chat. Please take a few minutes to respond to that before you leave the meeting. We'll also share that via email after the meeting and help us to improve our future webinars. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation, and have a great midweek, and hope your week ends on a good note. Thank you. I'm Regina Bowliboti. I've been your moderator for the session.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.